Driving from Tucson up Mount Lemmon was truly one of the highlights of our trip to the Southwest. I could see how people in the desert would enjoy this opportunity to escape the heat by gaining over a mile in elevation by traveling just 25 miles out of town. Lucas brought his drone to showcase the scenery of the Catalina Highway. We start out in the Sonoran Desert with all the cacti, then move to desert grasslands. You quickly transition into oak woodland and then ponderosa pine forest, and finally Douglas fir, spruce, and aspen near the town of Summerhaven, where we actually seen a little snow. It's the equivalent of traveling 1,500 miles north condensed into 25 miles. And if there's all that diversity of ecosystems, imagine birding diversity. We made several stops on the way up. At about 6,000 feet in elevation, there was a spotted towhee calling. While I was getting a video of him, we noticed a hummingbird fly by and land on a tree about 100 feet away. The pink gorget was a giveaway that it was an Anna's hummingbird. At the Windy Pass Vista, we spotted a zone-tailed hawk soaring over the mountain. Zone-tailed hawks often hold their wings in a V shape to mimic turkey vultures, so they seem harmless and can get close to their prey. They will even fly directly with groups of vultures, which are called kettles. Usually the hawk calls the kettles black. Then they dive from up to 300 feet high to catch an unsuspecting lizard or squirrel. Our next stop was Rose Canyon Lake, where we spotted this mountain chickadee, and then several yellow-eyed juncos. One of the yellow juncos was gathering pine needles for a nest. Their yellow eye really makes them stand out, but they're much more common than I thought they would be. We had a little harder time getting the pygmy nuthatch to come down for a photo. We heard several squeaking, but this was the best shot we could get. We did get some great looks at the blue-gray gnatcatcher. This one is a breeding male. These are common in Minnesota as there is an eastern and a western population. He does look similar to the black-tailed gnatcatcher I seen the day before. This is an Audubon's yellow rump warbler. You can tell because the throat is yellow instead of white. We also heard an olive warbler calling, but it was too high in the trees. We suddenly seen a couple of painted redstarts. These guys are very active and fun to watch as they stay lower in the trees or even near the water. They love to flip their white tail. I believe all the activity is to scare insects into flight so they can eat them. Next, we spotted the black-throated gray warbler. This is a western bird, but we seen one near the Mississippi River in Ramsey one time. Minnesota gets the black-throated green warbler, and just to our east is the black-throated blue warbler. You can tell this is a western bluebird because it has some orange on its back. I didn't know that, but I've seen hundreds of eastern bluebirds, and I knew something was different. The eastern bluebird's back is a cleaner all blue. At the very top of the mountain, we spotted this Abert squirrel, which has ear tufts. Also busy eating were several Steller's jays. There was a man sitting in a lawn chair throwing bread to the jays. They are smart and picky. They would not leave the safety of the branch until he threw 2 pieces. Then it would scoop down, grab the bread quickly, and return before eating. Also at the top of the mountain was another rock wren, and a turkey of all things. Finally, we spotted the Williamson sapsucker, which was probably about to head north to its breeding grounds in the Rocky Mountains. It's amazing that this one didn't get to be called the yellow-bellied sapsucker. The Williamson's belly is way more yellow than the sapsuckers we have in Minnesota. Our sapsuckers should be called the disheveled sapsucker. After much success, we grabbed a $9 cookie from the cookie cabin in Summerhaven and made a beeline for Madera Canyon, an hour on the opposite side of Tucson. Madera Canyon was a bit windy, but pleasant when we arrived in the afternoon. We took a short walk to the creek near Proctor Road, where we spotted a broad-billed hummingbird. There was also a gray hawk circling overhead. It briefly landed in a tree. These hawks are only in Mexico, West Texas, and Arizona. I was surprised how many birds were calling, but they weren't out in the open, like this Cassin's kingbird, who needs to be in the open so it can see insects to catch them midair. The real prize of this stop was the hooded oriole. This male was easy to spot, but the more eastern ones that we've seen in Big Bend National Park are even more of a blaze orange. Like all orioles, they like oranges and grape jelly. The Scott's oriole was also here calling, but we didn't get a photo. We worked very hard to get a photo of the bridal titmouse at the White House picnic area. But then we seen one at the feeders at Santa Rita Lodge, which was our next stop. There are many hummingbird feeders at the lodge, which were busy, but nothing compared to what you would experience if you came here in the summer. The Mexican jays were entertaining. As I mentioned in my last video, I think they look like the Woodhouse grub jay, but they do have a little more plain face and an all-white chest, with only a little gray on the back. There was also a hepatic tanager that I only captured for a second with my iPhone. And of course, a tom turkey, because they are everywhere. Doves are also everywhere. I think this was a mourning dove near the feeders. We spotted our first Inca dove feeding on the ground, until it flew. And of course, there were white-winged doves. I'm guessing common ground doves too, but I forgot to look. The Inca dove doesn't mourn, but it does say no hope. The main feature at the hummingbird feeders were broad-billed hummingbirds, a Mexican species that you can only see right here. They really should be called long-billed, in my opinion. We were able to get just enough sunlight to capture the iridescent blue coloring on the males. At this point, we had only seen one Rivali's hummingbird. There were several lesser goldfinch, and even a lazuli bunting hanging out near the feeders, but we didn't get a photo of that. We decided to get some more really high shutter speed shots of the hummingbirds to freeze their wings. Some people at the lodge talked about hearing the coppery-tailed trogon calling that morning on their walk, so we decided to try for it. A large crew of birders had just returned from looking and seemed discouraged, but then we met two other birders who said they just saw the trogon. They described the location in detail. Only they said it was about a half a mile and it was actually over a mile, but we found the location with the sycamore trees near the blooming Indian paintbrush. Unfortunately, 20 minutes of looking yielded no trogon. However, the hike did yield our only Arizona woodpecker. Upon returning to the lodge, it was getting a little dark for photographing hummingbirds, but the Rivali's was making regular appearances. We only got a couple shots, but it was fun to get this large, magnificent hummingbird. If you like hummingbirds, you need to visit the Santa Rita Lodge in Madera Canyon. Probably don't try to combine it in one day with Mount Lemmon, but somehow we've survived both amazing places.